Hey there everyone, today I'm going to make you something extra special. One of my family's favorite recipes, my world famous, or in my world famous, baklava. Now I first wanted to make baklava when I went to Epcot. I went to Morocco with my family and I tried the baklava there and it was so good. And I thought to myself, I really want to have this at home. I eventually tried it at home. I made it a few times, made some errors along the way, and my mom definitely helped figure out that recipe. And eventually I think we came up with a baklava that was better than even at Morocco, but that's just what my family thinks. You be the judge and you try it yourself when we're done. Now baklava might sound difficult at first, but I promise you it's not that hard. I'm going to walk you through all the steps. Let's get started. Now the first step is we're going to need 1 pound of walnut halves and pieces. I'm going to chop up these entire halves and pieces into even smaller bits in a Cuisinart that I have. Now 1 pound is about 4 cups of walnuts. So let's grab the Cuisinart here and get started. Now the recipe calls for 1 tablespoon plus 2 teaspoons of cinnamon, which I'm going to add now. Now I'm going to grind it up, but not too much. I don't want it to be ultra fine, but just fine enough to fit in the baklava. Looks perfect just like that. You can see it's not too fine, but it's not too ground up either, so it's the perfect consistency for baklava. Okay, now that our walnut and cinnamon mixture is set aside, we're gonna grab one of these pans right here, 9 by 13. That's the size you're going for, and we're gonna butter it so we're ready for our phyllo dough. Now I'm going to melt a little bit of butter. Now when it comes to baklava and a few other recipes, using a lot of butter is important. I know that a lot of us are on diets, especially me, because we're thinking about future Disney cruises and Disney trips, but don't be afraid of that butter because it will help in the recipe quite a bit. Phyllo pastry sheets are notoriously difficult to work with. The trick is to let them thaw just a little bit and to make sure you cover them with a damp cloth or saran wrap to make sure they stay hydrated while you're going through the process of making your baklava. Now before I take it out of the plastic here, I'm going to dampen this towel just a little bit, get some saran wrap and get ready for it, because once it's exposed, you got to start working with it, otherwise it's going to dry out and become extremely difficult, if not impossible, to work with. Okay, so here is the phyllo dough. Again, it basically looks like paper. It looks like paper, but it's not. It is dough. So be sure to unravel it on a clean surface, very important. And you're gonna roll it all the way out. See how it unrolls very easily. You don't want it to be sticking together because this has been thawed just a little bit. It's still cold to the touch, but it's not, it's ripping just a little bit right there. So you gotta let it thaw all the way. Now we have to measure the phyllo dough to make sure that it covers the pan completely, and then we're going to cut it right in half, right there. So we're gonna cut it in half just by pressing the knife down right through the phyllo dough. Don't try and saw it, just press through the phyllo dough. Now if it rips up a little bit, don't get frustrated. Remember, this is all gonna come out in one big piece anyway, so it doesn't really matter. Just be as careful as possible with it, and we are set to go. So again, you want to keep wrapping it up with the saran wrap and the damp towel to make sure it stays hydrated. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to take a piece of phyllo dough just like this, place it down, and we're gonna start keeping track now. So that's number 1. You're gonna put 8 sheets of phyllo dough, buttering as you go. So you butter each piece of phyllo dough just like that. I can tell it's already starting to get a bit dry, so I wanna put this towel right over all of it right there. Okay, you can see I have plenty of melted butter right there, so don't be afraid of that butter, and then we're just gonna keep on going, doing 1 piece of phyllo dough at a time. This is phyllo dough piece number 2 right here. Make sure you're marking those down because you don't want to forget what number you're on. So you see how I'm just setting it down right on top of the other one, and I'm starting to butter it with this brush right here. That's all it is. One after another. That's the hardest part of this whole recipe, is the phyllo dough. Now this is the Greek style. There are many different styles of baklava, but I make the Greek style. It's just a little bit more flavorful, a little bit sweeter, but there are other styles as well that are not as sweet. As an example, the Moroccan baklava is not as sweet as the Greek baklava, so if you want it to be more like Epcot's, then it's a different recipe, but I like mine nice and sweet, so this is the Greek version. Okay, that is 8 sheets of phyllo dough, each one buttered every single time. Now we're going to put 1/3 of the walnut and cinnamon mixture that we made earlier right on top here. Now you're probably thinking to yourself, Michael, 1/3, how do you measure that? Well, I just grab kind of a handful and just spread it all over. You kind of just have to use your judgment here. I guess you could measure it out into 3 equal parts, but usually I just spread it out and make sure it's even. So you can see we've covered it completely with that walnut and cinnamon mixture. Now we're going to put 2 sheets of phyllo dough right on top. Now this is kind of tough to do. You want to do one at a time now again and butter each time, but you want to do, the first one's very tough. Put the first one down, You can see I'm covering those the walnuts right like that. Then you have to be very gentle when you butter because you can easily puncture through this phyllo sheet right there. So very gentle, and you make your way around. And if you accidentally puncture it, don't worry about it. It's going to get cut up anyway. It's just a little bit easier to manage if it's not too punctured up. Take a look at that. We've got 2 more sheets right like that, and we're gonna add 1 more third of that walnut and cinnamon mixture. Okay, now you may have guessed it, we need 2 more pieces of phyllo dough, just the exact same way as before, buttered each time, and then we're gonna put the last third of that walnut and cinnamon mixture right on top. I've heard it pronounced phyllo dough, but I think it's phyllo dough. I think so. If anyone knows better, please do correct me in the comments. Take a look right there. You can see I punctured a few holes right there. So again, nobody's perfect. Just be as careful as you can. That's not gonna be a problem at all. This is the last third of the walnut and cinnamon mixture. We're gonna spread it evenly all over. Okay, it's looking good. Now we have to cover it up with the rest of the phyllo dough. We're gonna do 1 sheet at a time the same way as before, buttering it each time until we're all out of phyllo dough. Ready for a time lapse? Let's do it. And just like that, take a look, we are done with the phyllo dough. Now we've got to cut it up. Now before we start cutting up the baklava, you're going to want to preheat your oven to 325 degrees. Done. Okay, now it's time to cut up the baklava. And the way we're gonna do this is in diamond shapes. And the way to do that is to cut diagonally all the way across the baklava, and then the other way all the way across again. I'm gonna show you how to do that. Okay, I just washed my hands again, so I'm gonna touch the baklava here, and I'm just gonna start cutting diagonally right across. Sometimes you have to hold the 2 pieces of baklava back, the phyllo dough, right over there. You gotta kind of hold them back so they don't come off the tray, and make sure you cut it really deep in there, and then you're good to go. So start cutting it across just like that. And we are rolling. Take a look at the cuts in the phyllo dough right there. You can see I'm going diagonal all the way across from the corner. So you want to do that all the way down. Make sure the phyllo dough doesn't come off, and you're set to go. Would you call that 3/4 of an inch? Right like that, just about, not quite an inch, but about 3/4, little over a half. Now if you cut them smaller or bigger, it doesn't matter. They're just gonna get smaller or bigger pieces. It's not a big deal. You just cut them however you like them. See how I keep moving my fingers down the phyllo dough here to make sure that the dough doesn't come off that top layer of walnuts. Now it's very important that these cuts are cut the other way, perpendicular to these lines, the other direction, then you get the diamond pieces. Again, it's really difficult to hold down those pieces of phyllo dough right at the top. You'll know what I mean when you give it a try, but they want to come off of that top layer of walnuts. You can't let them do that. Now take a look at these, all cut up into their diamond shapes right there. They already look delicious, but we have to bake them, and we do that for 1 hour at 325 degrees. Let's put them in, and then we're gonna go to the next step. Okay, now that the baklava is cooking away, let's make up that special honey syrup that we're gonna pour on top once it's done. Now first thing we're gonna need for the honey syrup is 1 cup of sugar. And there we go, 1 cup of sugar. Now we need ½ a cup of water. Last but not least, we need 1 1/2 cups of honey. We need so much honey, I'm going to take the lid off of here. Here we go. Honey. Yum. We get the last bits of honey right out of there just like that. And then we are set to put it on the stove at medium-high heat until it comes to a boil. Okay, now I can't show you this part on camera, but I'm gonna put it on the stove, bring it to a medium-high heat until it boils, then take it off the stove, stir it up, and it should be set to go. And now it's starting to cool. It has to cool down to room temperature, and then we'll be ready to pour it over the baklava about 5 minutes after it comes out of the oven. Got a few more minutes to go. Take a look at this perfect looking baklava. It looks delicious. I want to eat it right now, but I'm going to set it down and let it cool for about 5, maybe 7 or 10 minutes. Let it cool, and then I'm going to pour the honey and sugar and water mixture on top. I'm also going to cut in there just a little bit more to make sure the honey goes all the way through. Then it has to sit overnight to cool. But first, let's let this cool down. Okay, it's been 5 minutes. It has cooled down, and now we're going to take this honey, water, and sugar mixture that we made earlier and pour it right on top. And as we do this, I'm going to move the tray around so it gets in all the little crevices. Okay, here we go, pouring it all over, moving the tray around as I do it. Not too much in any one spot. You want to get it all over there. Just like that. We are done with the honey There we go. And so now we just kind of sift it back and forth to get it in all those little crevices. Okay, it is all done. It smells fantastic in here, but we can't eat it just yet. We have to let it sit overnight. So I'm gonna go to sleep now. It's only gonna feel like a second to you. Then we're gonna try them tomorrow morning. You ready? Here we go.
The next morning.
That was pretty fast, right? It's another day. Take a look at the finished product, a piece of baklava. It looks absolutely delicious. Let's give it a try together. You ready? Here we go. Wow. Oh my gosh. I'm telling you, I love this recipe. If you give this one a try, I know for a fact that you are going to love it. It's perfect for the holidays. It's just sweet, nuts, everything. I have to tell you, this is one of my all-time favorite recipes to make at home, for friends, for family. It is a absolutely delicious one. It's a lot less complicated than you might think. I love it. I sure hope you enjoyed cooking with me today. It was a lot of fun to make them for you. Let me know in the comments below if you've tried baklava before, if you give this recipe a try, and let me know how you like it. I would love to hear from you. Thank you so much for being a part of the magic with me today. Until next time, have a magical day. Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, and Happy New Year, everyone.